Okay, so continuing on now with example 6. Okay, taking a look at this. Um, what I'm going to do is I see that this is crazy looking, right? But it is actually in a form that you would know how to solve. It is actually in the form of a quadratic, and this is how I'm going to prove that to you. This is already a third. I'm going to rewrite a third as a third squared, because remember, when you have parentheses, a third times 2 would be 2/3, which is exactly what I have up there. And now I'm going to make that x to the 1/3 be an a. And when I resubstitute, that's why I get an a squared plus a minus 6. This is something you can do. So when you go to do a problem like this is no problem, right? What multiplies to give you -6 that adds to give you 1? It's +3 and -2. So when you go and factor that, you set this up to solve as a plus 3 equals 0 and a minus 2 equals 0. No problem. So when you go to solve, I would subtract 3, so I get a equals -3, and I would add 2, so I get a equals 2. Except this problem is not being solved in terms of a, it's being solved in terms of x's. And we said that everywhere where there was x to the 1/3, we put an a, so now I'm going to resubstitute, but backwards. So now, when I do this, I'm putting that x to the 1/3 back in everywhere. So,
did you ever look at it?
So when I do this, it's actually going to be x to the 1/3 equals -3, and x to the 1/3 equals 2. So the opposite, or to get rid of a third, you actually have to cube everything. So I cube both sides, and that gets rid of that. -3 cubed, that is like saying -3 times -3 times -3, which is -27. Over here, I have to cube it, and 2 cubed is like saying 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. So those are your actual answers for x, and not what we had before, because that was in terms of a.
Do you dig?
Example 7. We can rewrite this, like I said before when we were factoring, in the prerequisite section. Anytime you see an x to the 4th power, you can rewrite that as x squared squared. So that becomes x squared squared minus 3x squared plus 1. And I'm going to take out anywhere where there's an x squared and replace it with an a. And once again, this is something that you could try to solve much simpler. Can't factor it, but you can use the quadratic formula. So that's 1, a is 1, b is -3, c is 1, so I put those all in, right? b is -3, a and c are both 1. So -3 is 3, that's a 9, that's a -4 divided by 2. So we got 3 plus or minus √5/2. But this is what a is. Well, it's not a, it's x's that we're solving for, and we know that a actually is x squared. So really, this is x squared equals this stuff. So x squared equals 3 plus √5/2, and x squared equals 3 minus √5/2. So to get rid of x squared, I have to actually square root both sides. So when I do that, I get plus or minus the square root of 3 plus the square root of 5/2. And over here, I actually get plus or minus the square root of 3 minus the square root of 5/2. Now I know that these answers look weird, but these are the actual answers, and they will give you numbers when you plug them in your calculator, actual numerical decimals, but you can just keep your answer like this for right now. It's fine. And notice there's 1, 2, 3, 4 answers because the problem was x to the 4th power. Okay, over here with this one, I'm going to move everything onto one side, so that's why I'm minus the 14x cubed. So I have 2x to the 5th minus 14x cubed plus 24x. I notice that they all have a 2 in them. I can take a 2 out of all of them. And I notice that they all have an x, so I'm going to take a 2x out of everything. And when I do that, 2 divided by 2 is 1. I took 1x out, so that's x to the 4th. -14 divided by 2 is -7. I took an x out, so that's x squared. Took the x out, and 24 divided by 2 is 12. Okay. So, I realize again that's x to the 4th, so that's squared squared. So I can try to factor this. And I'm going to put u's in this time instead. So this is actually u squared minus 7u plus 12. Now notice how I didn't replace this x. Everywhere there's an x squared, I put a u in. Not everywhere there's an x. Everywhere there's an x squared, I put a u in. So I'm trying to see what works that I can factor this into. Um, Negative 3 times negative 4 is 12. Negative 3 plus negative 4 is negative 7. So those are my factors. So when I go and separate this to solve, that equals 0, that equals 0, and that equals 0. So that's simple. I divide them all by 2, and I get x equals 0. Over here, I add 3 to both sides. I get u equals 3. Over here, I add 4 to both sides. I get u equals 4. But u is not what I'm solving for. I'm solving for x. So everywhere there's a u, I got to put in an x squared, because if you remember, that's what I said before. Making them x squareds. So I take the square root of each side, so I get x equals plus or minus the square root of 3. Square root of both sides there, and I get x equals plus or minus 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 answers, because remember this was x to the 5th power.
I'm the dude. So that's what.
So there's the homework. I know there's some other crazy type of equations in there. I think I now, after this, after sections 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is now 5, I think you've seen every type of weird, funky equation to try to solve that's possible. So they're all going to be mixed and matched throughout the whole entire test whenever you take it. You got to know how to solve each of those little types of equations. So hopefully the examples that we have coming up will also help you figure out how to solve all these other little types of equations. If you have any other questions or concerns, please, please, please do not hesitate. Please let me know. I'll be more than happy to help.